The sun was setting over New York City, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Karoline Leavitt stepped out of her car, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had driven all the way from Boston to surprise her husband, Daniel, who was staying at the Whitmore Grand Hotel for a business conference. The hotel looked even more impressive in person than it did in pictures. Its tall windows glowed warmly against the darkening sky, and the revolving doors seemed to invite her inside. Karoline pulled her coat tighter around herself as a cool breeze swept through the street. She grabbed her small overnight bag from the passenger seat and locked the car behind her. With each step toward the entrance, she felt her heart beat faster. It wasn't often that she got the chance to do something spontaneous like this. Daniel was always so busy with work, and their schedules rarely aligned. This weekend, though, she decided to take matters into her own hands. As she entered the lobby, the warmth of the space enveloped her. Plush furniture sat neatly arranged, around coffee tables adorned with fresh flowers. A grand chandelier hung above, casting soft light across marble floors. Everything about the place screamed luxury, but Karoline didn't have time to admire it. Her focus was on finding Daniel's room. She approached the reception desk where a young woman with curly brown hair and glasses greeted her with a polite smile. "Good evening," the receptionist said. "How can I assist you?" "Hi, I'm here to check into my husband's room," Karoline replied, pulling out her driver's license and handing it over. "His name is Daniel Leavitt." The receptionist, whose name tag read Chloe, took the ID and studied it carefully. Karoline noticed a flicker of hesitation in Chloe's expression. Maybe it was just her imagination, or maybe it was because her last name didn't match Daniel's. Either way, she waited patiently while Chloe typed something into the computer. After a moment, Chloe looked up, her smile now slightly forced. "I see Mr. Leavitt has a reservation here, but..." She paused, glancing back at the screen. "Your name isn't listed under his booking." "Oh, we're married, but I kept my maiden name," Karoline explained quickly. "Is there any way you could still give me access? I drove a long way to see him." Chloe frowned, tapping her pen lightly against the counter. Something about Karoline's polished appearance made her uneasy. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but she felt a nagging sense of doubt. Was this really Daniel's wife, or was she someone trying to gain unauthorized access to a guest's room? These days, you couldn't be too careful. "Well, typically, we'd need to confirm with the guest directly," Chloe said slowly. "But since it's late and he might already be asleep..." Karoline nodded understandingly. "Of course, I get it. Do you think you could call his room, just to let him know I'm here?" Chloe hesitated again. Normally, she would follow protocol and make the call, but tonight her instincts told her otherwise. Perhaps it was the fatigue from a long shift, or maybe it was the subtle bias creeping into her thoughts. Whatever the reason, she decided against calling Daniel. Instead, she came up with what she thought was a safer solution. "I'll go ahead and assign you to another room close by," Chloe said finally, typing rapidly on the keyboard. "That way, if there's any issue, we can sort it out tomorrow morning." Karoline raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. She was tired from the drive and eager to settle in. "Okay, thank you," she said, accepting the keycard Chloe handed her. "Which room am I in?" "You're in room 812, Chloe replied. "Just take the elevator to the 8th floor and turn left when you exit." With that, Karoline headed toward the elevators, unaware of the mistake that had just been made. As the doors closed behind her, Chloe sighed, leaning back in her chair. She hoped she had done the right thing. Deep down, though, she knew she hadn't followed proper procedure, and that realization gnawed at her. Upstairs, Karoline found room 812 without trouble. She slid the keycard into the slot and pushed open the door. The room was dimly lit, with curtains drawn shut and no sign of Daniel's belongings anywhere. Odd, she thought. Had he gone downstairs to the conference hall? Or maybe he'd left something in the car. She set her bag on the bed and glanced around. Everything seemed clean and untouched, which reassured her that the room was indeed vacant. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. Pulling out her phone, she sent Daniel a quick text. "Hey, I'm here." Surprised. "You didn't run into me yet." Minutes passed, but there was no reply. Karoline shrugged it off, assuming he was busy or hadn't seen her message. Little did she know. The events set in motion by Chloe's decision were about to spiral far beyond anything she could have imagined. Image description for Leonardo AIA. Luxurious hotel lobby at sunset, featuring a grand chandelier hanging above. Polished marble floors. Warm lighting illuminates plush furniture arranged around coffee tables decorated with fresh flowers. A young woman with blonde hair wearing a stylish coat stands near the reception desk, holding an overnight bag. Behind the desk, a female receptionist with curly brown hair and glasses types on a computer, looking slightly hesitant. Large windows in the background showcase the vibrant colors of the evening sky, with silhouettes of skyscrapers visible outside. Karoline sat on the edge of the bed in room 812, scrolling through her phone as she waited for Daniel to reply. The room was quiet, almost too quiet, and the absence of his things made her feel uneasy. She glanced at the clock on the nightstand. It was nearly 9:30 p.m. Surely he would have checked his phone by now. Maybe he was still at the conference hall or talking with colleagues over dinner. Deciding not to overthink it, Karoline stood up and walked to the window. She pulled back the heavy curtains, revealing a stunning view of the city skyline. The bay lights twinkled like stars against the dark canvas of the night. It was breathtaking, but it didn't ease the growing knot of worry in her stomach. She tried calling Daniel's number, but it went straight to voicemail. That wasn't unusual. He sometimes forgot to charge his phone, but it only added to her unease. Meanwhile, across the hallway, Ryan Hayes trudged toward what he believed was his assigned room. He had just arrived from Chicago after a long day of meetings and travel delays. Exhausted, he dragged his suitcase behind him, barely paying attention to his surroundings. All he wanted was to collapse onto a soft bed and forget about work for a few hours. Ryan fumbled with his keycard, finally managing to unlock the door to room 812. As he stepped inside and flipped on the light switch, he froze. Sitting by the window, bathed in the glow of the city lights, was Karoline. Startled, she turned around, her eyes wide with confusion. "What are you doing in my room?" Ryan demanded, his voice sharp with alarm. His mind raced. Had there been some kind of mix-up? Or worse, was this woman trying to rob him? "I could ask you the same thing," Karoline replied, standing up cautiously. Her heart pounded as she took in the stranger before her. He looked disheveled, with rumpled clothes and tired eyes, but that didn't make him any less intimidating. "This is my husband's room." Ryan frowned, shaking his head. "No, I think you're mistaken. This is my room." To prove his point, he pulled out his phone and opened the hotel confirmation email. "See? Room 8 on 12. This is where I'm supposed to be." Karoline felt a chill run down her spine. Something was terribly wrong. She approached him hesitantly and pointed to the keycard in her hand. "But they gave me this keycard downstairs. They told me this was my husband's room." Realization dawned on both of them simultaneously. There had been a mistake, a big one. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, muttering under his breath. "Great. Just what I needed tonight." Determined to get answers, Karoline grabbed her phone and dialed the front desk. After several rings, Chloe answered, sounding flustered. "Whitmore, Grand Hotel, how may I assist you?" "Hi, this is Karoline Leavitt. I'm in room 812, but, well, there seems to be another guest here who also thinks this is his room. Can you explain what's going on?" Chloe's face flushed with panic. She hadn't expected this call so soon. Scrambling for an explanation, she stammered, Let me check the system again. One moment, please." While Karoline waited on hold, Ryan paced the room, muttering complaints about hotels and their incompetence. "I swear every time I travel something like this happens. Why can't people do their jobs properly?" Karoline shot him a glare. "Excuse me, but this isn't exactly my fault either." Before Ryan could respond, Chloe came back on the line. "Mrs. Leavitt, I apologize for the confusion. It appears there was a mix-up with the room assignments. You were mistakenly given access to Mr. Hayes's room." "A mix-up?" Karoline repeated, incredulous. "How does something like this even happen?" "I'll fix it right away," Chloe promised hurriedly. Please come down to the front desk so we can sort this out." Karoline sighed, hanging up the phone. She turned to Ryan, who looked equally frustrated. "They messed up our rooms. We need to go downstairs to figure this out." Ryan groaned but nodded reluctantly. Together they left the room and headed for the elevator. Neither spoke during the ride down, each lost in their own thoughts. When they reached the lobby, they found Chloe waiting anxiously behind the reception desk. "I'm so sorry for the inconvenience," Chloe began, addressing them both. "Let me find you a new room immediately, Mrs. Leavitt." "No. Wait," Ryan interrupted, crossing his arms. "Why should she get priority? I've been traveling all day and—" The tension in the lobby continued to escalate as more guests joined the growing crowd. Some were curious bystanders, while others saw an opportunity to air their own complaints about the hotel. Chloe stood behind the reception desk, her face pale and her hands trembling slightly. She tried to calm everyone down, but her voice was drowned out by the rising chorus of voices. Karoline felt overwhelmed. This wasn't how she had imagined her surprise visit turning out. She glanced at Ryan, who seemed equally frustrated but also strangely alert. His eyes darted around the room, taking in every detail. It was clear he was observing the scene closely, likely for some purpose Karoline couldn't yet understand. "Look," Karoline said, raising her voice just enough to be heard over the noise. "I don't want to cause trouble. I just need to find my husband's room so I can settle this." Ryan crossed his arms and leaned closer to the desk. "And what about me? I've been traveling all day, and now I'm stuck dealing with this mess because someone didn't do their job properly." Chloe swallowed hard, trying to keep her composure. "Please, both of you, let me fix this. I'll find your correct rooms right away." Before she could act, Daniel Leavitt walked into the lobby. He had returned from the conference hall expecting a quiet evening alone. Instead, he found himself surrounded by agitated guests and a chaotic scene that made no sense at first glance. Spotting Karoline near the front desk, he hurried over, concern etched on his face. "Karoline, what's going on here?" Daniel asked, his voice firm but tinged with worry. "Why are all these people arguing?" Karoline turned to him, relief washing over her features. "Daniel, thank goodness. There's been a huge mix-up. They gave me the wrong room key and now." She gestured toward Ryan, who still looked annoyed. "This man ended up in the same room I was in." Daniel blinked, clearly confused. "Wait, slow down. Start from the beginning." As Karoline explained the situation, Ryan interjected. "To sum it up, the receptionist messed up. Now we're stuck in the middle of this circus." Daniel frowned, glancing at Chloe. "This is unacceptable. Can someone explain how this happened?" Chloe hesitated, unsure of how much to admit. Finally, she spoke in a low voice. "It was my fault. I assumed Mrs. Leavitt might not actually be who she said she was, so instead of verifying, I gave her access to another room." Her confession only fueled the fire. John Miller, the middle-aged man from earlier, stepped forward. "Assumed? You mean you judged her based on nothing? That's ridiculous." Patricia chimed in, nodding vigorously. "Exactly. This kind of behavior is why people lose trust in businesses. We pay good money to stay here, and this is how we're treated?" The murmurs of agreement grew louder, and Chloe looked like she wanted to disappear. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment as she stammered, I didn't mean to cause any harm. I was just trying to follow protocol." Ryan narrowed his eyes at her. "Protocol or bias? Because it sounds like you decided not to check because of assumptions you made about Karoline." Chloe opened her mouth to defend herself but stopped when she saw the angry stares directed at her. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she stepped back, unable to respond. Seeing the situation spiraling further out of control, Daniel raised his hands. "Everyone, please. Let's try to resolve this calmly. My wife came here to spend time with me, and none of us need this kind of drama. Can we focus on fixing the problem?" His words seemed to have some effect. The crowd quieted slightly, though grumbles of discontent remained. Chloe quickly assigned Karoline and Daniel to the correct room and offered Ryan a different one on a higher floor. Both parties accepted reluctantly, eager to escape the chaos. As they walked away from the desk, Ryan muttered under his breath. This isn't over. He pulled out his phone and began typing notes, his mind already racing with ideas for an article. Karoline noticed his actions and sighed. Great. Just what we needed. A journalist turning this into a bigger deal. Daniel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Don't worry about him. Let's just get to our room and forget about this night. But even as they headed for the elevator, Karoline couldn't shake the feeling that the fallout from Chloe's mistake was far from over. Image description for Leonardo AIA bustling hotel lobby, filled with agitated guests gathered around a reception desk. A young female receptionist with curly brown hair and glasses stands nervously behind the counter, clutching a pen and looking flustered. To her left, a blonde woman in a stylish coat talks animatedly with a tall man in a wrinkled shirt, their body language tense. Behind them, a well-dressed couple, middle-aged with concerned expressions, watches the scene unfold. In the background, other guests murmur amongst themselves, creating a sense of disorder. Warm lighting illuminates the marble floors and elegant furniture, contrasting with the heated atmosphere. By the time Karoline, Daniel, and Ryan retreated from the chaotic lobby, the situation had already begun to spread beyond the hotel walls. Ryan Hayes wasted no time in documenting everything. As soon as he reached his newly assigned room on the 10th floor, he pulled out his laptop and started typing furiously. He wasn't just writing an article, he was crafting a story that would expose what he saw as systemic flaws in customer service and judgment. Ryan's mind raced with ideas. The mix-up at the front desk was more than a simple error. It was a symptom of deeper issues, including bias and poor training. He remembered Chloe's hesitation when handing Karoline the key card and how she admitted to making assumptions instead of following protocol. To Ryan, this was the perfect example of how personal biases could lead to professional mistakes. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he outlined his thoughts, determined to make the story go viral. Meanwhile, Karoline and Daniel tried to relax in their room, but the events of the evening lingered heavily in their minds. Karoline paced back and forth, her frustration bubbling to the surface. I can't believe this happened, she muttered. We came here for a nice weekend together, and now we're caught up in this mess. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his temples. I know it's frustrating, but let's not let it ruin our trip. We'll talk to management tomorrow and make sure they understand how serious this is. Karoline stopped pacing and looked at him. Do you think that'll be enough? That journalist, Ryan, he didn't look like he was going to let this drop. What if he writes something bad about us? Daniel shrugged. If he does, we'll deal with it then. For now, we should focus on why we're here. You surprised me, and I appreciate that. Let's not let one mistake overshadow everything else. His words calmed her slightly, but she still felt uneasy. She glanced at her phone, noticing several notifications from social media apps. Curious, she opened one of them and froze. Someone had posted a video of the argument in the lobby, and it was gaining traction fast. Comments poured in, ranging from sympathy for Karoline and Daniel to outrage over Chloe's actions. Some even criticized Karoline herself, questioning whether she truly belonged in the hotel. Daniel, you need to see this, Karoline said, holding out her phone. He took it and scrolled through the comments, his expression darkening. This is getting out of hand. The next morning, the story exploded. Ryan's article went live on a popular news website titled, Liberal Bias at Whitmore Grand Sparks Chaos. It painted Chloe's decision as a result of unchecked prejudice and highlighted the hotel's failure to handle the situation properly. Screenshots of the argument in the lobby accompanied the piece, along with quotes from other guests who had been present. Within hours, the article had thousands of shares and comments. Reporters began arriving at the Whitmore Grand, eager to get statements from those involved. Guests were interviewed in the lobby, and cameras captured every detail of the once peaceful hotel. Calls flooded into the reception desk with people demanding answers or threatening lawsuits. The hotel staff scrambled to respond, but the damage had already been done. Back in their room, Karoline and Daniel watched the news coverage unfold on TV. They saw clips of Ryan speaking confidently to reporters, explaining his side of the story. This incident highlights a broader issue, he said. When businesses allow personal biases to influence decisions, it leads to mistakes that harm innocent people. Karoline sighed, sinking onto the couch. He's making us look like victims, but I don't want to be part of this spectacle. I just wanted to spend time with you. Daniel nodded. I know. We have two options. Stay quiet and hope it blows over, or speak up and set the record straight. Before they could decide, there was a knock at the door. When Daniel opened it, he found Chloe standing there, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I never meant for any of this to happen. Karoline stepped forward, her anger softening slightly. It's not just your fault. The hotel needs to take responsibility too. Chloe nodded, wiping her eyes. They're going to fire me, aren't they? No one answered, but the silence spoke volumes. Image. Description for Leonardo AIA modern hotel room bathed in soft morning light streaming through sheer curtains. A blonde woman sits on the edge of a neatly made bed, holding her phone and looking troubled. Across from her, a man in casual clothes watches a flat-screen TV mounted on the wall, showing a news report with headlines about a hotel scandal. On the coffee table between them lies a laptop open to a document filled with typed notes. The atmosphere feels tense yet calm. Kalbar. The days following the incident at the Whitmore Grand Hotel felt like a whirlwind for everyone involved. Karoline and Daniel tried to stay out of the spotlight, but it was impossible. Reporters camped outside their house, eager for a statement. Neighbors whispered behind closed doors, speculating about what had really happened. The couple found themselves caught in a media storm they hadn't asked for and didn't know how to navigate. Karoline spent hours scrolling through social media, reading comments from strangers who seemed to have strong opinions about her life. Some defended her, saying she was an innocent victim of poor hotel management. Others accused her of exaggerating the situation or even staging the entire thing for attention. It was overwhelming, and Karoline often found herself questioning why she'd ever decided to surprise Daniel in the first place. Daniel, on the other hand, felt torn between anger and helplessness. He hated seeing Karoline so upset, but he also knew there wasn't much they could do to stop the chaos. We need to take control of this, he told her one evening as they sat together in their living room. If we don't say something, people will keep twisting the story. Karoline nodded slowly. You're right. But what can we say? I don't want to make things worse. We tell the truth, Daniel said firmly. No drama, no exaggeration, just the facts. That's all we can do. Meanwhile, Ryan Hayes continued to dominate the narrative. His article had gone viral, sparking debates across the country about bias, accountability, and corporate responsibility. Talk shows invited him as a guest and podcasts reached out for interviews. Ryan seized every opportunity, using his platform to push for change. But deep down, he couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that he might be taking things too far. Night after a long day of interviews, Ryan sat alone in his apartment staring at his laptop screen. He replayed the footage of the argument in the hotel lobby, listening to Karoline's voice as she explained her side of the story. For the first time, he allowed himself to consider how it must have felt for her. To drive hours to surprise her husband, only to end up in the middle of a public scandal. Was he exploiting her experience for his own gain? Ryan shook his head, trying to dismiss the thought. He told himself that exposing flaws in systems was important, even if it meant shining a light on individual mistakes. Still, he couldn't shake the guilt creeping into his mind. At the Whitmore Grand, the fallout was equally intense. Chloe had resigned shortly after apologizing to Karoline and Daniel, unable to face the backlash any longer. Her manager, desperate to salvage the hotel's reputation, implemented new policies to prevent similar incidents in the future. Employees underwent mandatory training sessions on bias awareness and customer service. While these changes were necessary, they came too late to undo the damage already done. For Karoline, the breaking point came when a tabloid published an unflattering photo of her alongside a headline questioning her motives. She stared at the magazine cover in disbelief, tears streaming down her face. "This isn't who I am," she whispered to Daniel. "I didn't ask for any of this." Daniel rapped, his arms around her, holding her tightly. "Then let's show them who you really are," he said. "Let's turn this around." Together, they drafted a statement explaining their side of the story. They emphasized that the incident wasn't about blame or revenge. It was about learning from mistakes and moving forward. When they released the statement online, it resonated with many people who had grown tired of the sensationalism surrounding the case. Comments poured in, praising Karoline and Daniel for their grace under pressure. Encouraged by the positive response, Karoline decided to take things a step further. She began reaching out to organizations focused on empathy and communication in professional settings. Slowly, she started speaking at workshops and conferences, sharing her experience as a lesson in understanding and forgiveness. Each talk helped her heal, reminding her that even the most difficult situations could lead to growth. Ryan eventually reached out to Karoline, sending her a heartfelt email. "I realize now that my actions may have caused you more harm than good," he wrote. "I hope you can forgive me for turning your private moment into a public spectacle. If there's anything I can do to make amends, please let me know." To his surprise, Karoline replied, "Thank you for your apology," she wrote back. "While I wish none of this had happened, I've learned a lot from it. Maybe we can both use this experience to create something meaningful." Image description for Leonardo AIA cozy living room illuminated by soft lamplight. A blonde woman sits on a couch, holding a tissue and looking emotional as she reads something on her phone. Across from her, a man with short brown hair leans forward, offering comfort with a reassuring hand on her shoulder. On the coffee table in front of them lies a magazine with a bold headline visible, hinting at controversy. The scene conveys a mix of vulnerability and support, capturing a quiet moment amidst a larger storm. Weeks passed, and the initial frenzy surrounding the Whitmore Grand Hotel incident began to die down. Life slowly returned to normal for Karoline and Daniel, though the scars of the experience lingered. Karoline found herself reflecting on everything that had happened: the mix-up at the hotel, the media storm, and the lessons she had learned along the way. What started as a simple plan to surprise her husband had turned into a life-changing ordeal, one that forced her to confront difficult truths about judgment, bias, and resilience. Karoline's decision to speak publicly about her experience marked a turning point. At first she hesitated, unsure if sharing her story would only reopen old wounds. But as she stood in front of her first audience, a small group of business professionals at a local conference, she realized how powerful vulnerability could be. Her words resonated deeply with the attendees, many of whom approached her afterward to express gratitude. They shared their own stories of being misunderstood or judged unfairly, and Karoline felt a newfound sense of purpose. Daniel supported her every step of the way. He attended her talks, helped her prepare presentations, and offered encouragement when self-doubt crept in. "You're making a difference," he told her after one particularly impactful session. "This isn't just about you anymore. It's about helping others avoid the same mistakes." Karoline smiled, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in months. For the first time since the incident, she saw a silver lining. The chaos had been painful, but it had also given her an opportunity to grow and inspire change. Meanwhile, Ryan Hayes continued to reflect on his role in the drama. His article had brought him recognition and opened doors to new opportunities, but it also weighed heavily on his conscience. He couldn't stop thinking about the consequences of his actions, the stress he'd caused Karoline and Daniel, the damage to Chloe's career, and the way the story had spiraled out of control. One afternoon, while working on a new piece, Ryan paused to scroll through social media. He came across a video of Karoline speaking at a workshop. In it, she talked about forgiveness and the importance of learning from mistakes. Her tone was calm and compassionate, completely devoid of bitterness. Ryan felt a pang of guilt as he listened. He knew he needed to do more than send an apology. The next day, Ryan reached out to Karoline again, this time proposing a collaboration. "I'd like to write a follow-up article," he explained in his message. "Not about what went wrong, but about what we can learn from it. Would you be willing to work with me? Karoline read the message several times before responding. She wasn't sure if she trusted Ryan fully, but she recognized the value of his platform. If they could use his reach to spread positivity, it might help prevent similar incidents in the future. Let's talk, she replied simply. They met over coffee at a quiet cafe downtown. Ryan arrived early, nervous about how the conversation would go. When Karoline walked in, he noticed how different she seemed compared to the woman he'd encountered at the hotel. She carried herself with confidence now, her eyes filled with determination rather than frustration. I appreciate you reaching out, Karoline said after they sat down. But I need to know your intentions are genuine. This isn't about clicks or headlines anymore. Ryan nodded earnestly. I understand. I messed up, and I want to make things right. Your story has already inspired so many people. Let's focus on solutions instead of blame. Over the course of their meeting, they outlined ideas for the article. They agreed to highlight the changes implemented by the Whitmore Grand Hotel, discuss the importance of empathy in customer service, and share personal reflections on forgiveness. By the end of their conversation, Karoline felt hopeful. This could actually make a difference, she said, as word of their collaboration spread. Interest grew. The Whitmore Grand invited Karoline and Ryan to attend a ceremony celebrating the hotel's revamped policies. It was a chance to acknowledge past mistakes and honor those who had contributed to meaningful change. On the day of the event, the atmosphere at the hotel was markedly different from the chaos of weeks earlier. Guests mingled in the lobby, chatting amiably as soft music played in the background. Karoline stood near the stage, preparing to deliver a speech. Daniel watched proudly from the sidelines, while Ryan sat nearby, taking notes for his article. When Karoline stepped up to the microphone, the room fell silent. She took a deep breath and began to speak. Mistakes. The ceremony at the Whitmore Grand Hotel marked a turning point for everyone involved. Karoline's speech resonated deeply with the audience, leaving many in tears and others inspired to make changes in their own lives. As she stepped away from the podium, she felt a sense of closure she hadn't expected. The journey had been long and painful, but it had also taught her lessons she would carry forever. After the event, guests mingled in the lobby, exchanging thoughts about the evening. Chloe stood near the edge of the crowd, hesitant to approach anyone. She still felt guilty for her role in the incident, despite the hotel's efforts to move forward. Seeing Karoline speak so openly about forgiveness made her realize how much work she needed to do on herself. Taking a deep breath, she decided to take a step toward healing. She approached Karoline cautiously, her hands trembling as she held them together. Karoline, she said softly, catching the other woman's attention. Can I talk to you for a moment? Karoline turned, surprised but not unwelcoming. Of course, she replied, stepping aside to give them some privacy. Chloe swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. I just wanted to say thank you for everything you've done. Your speech, it meant a lot to me. I know I made a huge mistake and I'll never forgive myself for causing you and your husband so much trouble. But hearing you talk about forgiveness gives me hope that maybe I can learn from this too. Karoline studied Chloe's face, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. We all make mistakes, she said gently. What matters is what we do after. You've already taken responsibility and that's a big step. Don't let guilt hold you back from moving forward. Chloe nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. Thank you, she whispered again before walking away, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. Meanwhile, Ryan observed the interaction from a distance. He couldn't help but admire Karoline's ability to forgive. It was something he struggled with in his own life, both personally and professionally. Watching her handle the aftermath of such a public ordeal with grace made him question his motivations as a journalist. Was he truly seeking justice, or was he chasing headlines at the expense of others? Later that evening, Ryan sat alone in his apartment, staring at the draft of his article. The piece was nearly finished, but something about it didn't feel right. He realized he had focused too much on exposing flaws and not enough on offering solutions. Inspired by Karoline's example, he rewrote parts of the article, emphasizing Empathy and Growth Over Blame. When it was published the following week, readers praised its balanced tone and constructive message. For Daniel, the entire experience strengthened his bond with Karoline. He admired her strength and resilience, qualities he hadn't fully appreciated until now. Together, they returned to their normal routines, but with a renewed appreciation for each other and the challenges they had overcome. As for the Whitmore Grand Hotel, the changes implemented in response to the incident earned praise from guests and industry experts alike. Employees reported feeling more confident in their roles, knowing they were supported by clear policies and ongoing training. The hotel even received an award for excellence in customer service, a testament to the progress they had made. Though the scars of the past remained, they served as reminders of lessons learned. For Karoline, it was about using adversity to create positive change. For Ryan, it was about balancing ambition with compassion. And for Chloe, it was about finding redemption through accountability. Image description for Leonardo AIA dimly lit. Hotel lobby filled with warmth and soft ambient lighting. A young woman with curly brown hair stands near the edge of a crowd, wiping away tears as she looks toward a blonde woman standing nearby. The blonde woman smiles warmly, exuding kindness and understanding. In the background, guests chat quietly, creating a calm yet reflective atmosphere. Potted plants and elegant furniture decorate the space, while golden light filters through large windows, highlighting the emotional connection between the two women. Months passed, and life slowly returned to a rhythm of normalcy for everyone. Affected by the events at the Whitmore Grand Hotel, Karoline continued her work as a speaker, traveling to conferences and workshops across the country. Her message of forgiveness and understanding resonated with audiences from all walks of life. She often shared her own story, not as a cautionary tale, but as an example of how mistakes could lead to growth if handled with grace. Daniel remained her biggest supporter, accompanying her whenever his schedule allowed. He marveled at how much she had transformed since that chaotic night in New York. The experience had given her a voice, one she used to inspire others to embrace empathy and accountability in their daily lives. Together they found joy in the small moments, a quiet dinner at home, a walk through the park, or simply sitting together on the couch reading books. Their bond felt stronger than ever, forged in the fire of adversity. Ryan Hayes also underwent a transformation. His collaboration with Karoline had shifted his perspective on journalism. While he still pursued stories that exposed flaws in systems, he began approaching them with a focus on solutions rather than blame. His articles became more balanced, offering readers hope alongside awareness. He reached out to Karoline occasionally, updating her on his progress and thanking her for the impact she'd had on his career. Though they didn't stay in constant contact, their connection remained meaningful. Chloe, meanwhile, worked hard to rebuild her life. After leaving the Whitmore Grand, she took a job at a smaller boutique hotel where the pace was slower and the stakes felt lower. It gave her time to reflect on her actions and grow as a person. She kept tabs on the changes happening at her former workplace, feeling proud of the role she had played, even unintentionally, in sparking positive reforms. Occasionally, she thought about reaching out to Karoline again, but she worried it might be too much. Still, she carried the memory of their brief conversation, letting it guide her toward becoming a better version of herself. The Whitmore Grand Hotel thrived under its new policies, earning praise from guests and critics alike. Its reputation recovered fully, thanks in part to the transparency and effort shown during the aftermath of the incident. Employees felt empowered by the emphasis on training and communication, knowing they were equipped to handle challenges professionally and compassionately. One crisp autumn evening, nearly a year after the fateful mix-up, Karoline received an invitation to speak at a gala honoring leaders in customer service innovation. The event was being held at, you guessed it, the Whitmore Grand Hotel. At first she hesitated. Returning to the scene of so much drama felt daunting. But Daniel encouraged her, reminding her of how far she'd come. "This is your chance to close the chapter," he said. "You've earned this." When the night arrived, Karoline walked into the lobby with a sense of calm she hadn't expected. The space looked familiar, yet different. brighter, warmer, more welcoming. Guests greeted her warmly, many recognizing her from previous talks or articles. As she prepared to take the stage, she spotted Chloe sitting near the back of the room. Their eyes met briefly, and Chloe offered a shy smile before looking down at her hands. Karoline's speech that night was heartfelt and reflective. She spoke about the power of mistakes to teach valuable lessons, the importance of forgiveness, and the need for empathy in every interaction. When she finished, the audience erupted into applause, standing to show their appreciation. Among them was Ryan, who nodded approvingly from his seat, penning notes for what would become one of his most thoughtful pieces yet. Afterward, Karoline mingled with attendees, shaking hands and exchanging words of gratitude. Eventually, she made her way to Chloe, who stood nervously nearby. "I'm glad you came," Karoline said kindly. "I wasn't sure if I should," Chloe admitted, "but I wanted to hear you speak. You've inspired me to keep moving forward." Karoline smiled. "We're all works in progress. I'm just glad we're moving in the right direction." As the evening drew to a close, Karoline stepped outside onto the hotel's terrace. The city lights twinkled below, mirroring the glow of hope she felt inside. She glanced at Daniel, who stood beside her, holding her hand. Together, they gazed out at the horizon, ready to embrace whatever the future held. Image description for Leonardo AIA modern hotel terrace bathed in soft golden light from overhead string lights. A blonde woman wearing a stylish coat stands near the railing, gazing out at a breathtaking view of a city skyline illuminated by countless twinkling lights. Beside her, a man with short brown hair holds her hand, their body language conveying warmth and connection. Potted plants and decorative lanterns line the edges of the terrace, adding to the serene atmosphere. In the background, tall skyscrapers rise against a dark sky, creating a sense of peace and possibility.